and overlook the second. Now, to pursue our case directly, does the Bible quote Jesus as claiming equality with God? Bible texts are produced to show that Jesus used the terms Son of Man, Son of God, Messiah, and Savior. But each of these terms is applied to other individuals in the Bible. Ezekiel was addressed as Son of Man. Jesus himself spoke of the peacemakers as sons of God. Cyrus the Persian is called Messiah. And in this case, the deceit of translators is apparent, for they inevitably render only the meaning of the word Messiah in this passage of Isaiah chapter 45, verse 1. The meaning of Messiah is anointed, someone who was specially chosen and put in charge of a particular duty. Where there are other Bible verses that seem to refer to Jesus, they write Messiah instead of translating the word as anointed. Or they put the Greek word, which is equivalent to Messiah, Christ. In this way, they hope to give the impression that there is only one Messiah. As for Savior, the word is applied to other than Jesus. At 2 Kings chapter 13 and verse 5, for example. But Christians choose to cite the 43rd chapter of Isaiah as proof that there is only one Savior. Again, translators have tried to obscure the fact that God is the only Savior in the same ultimate sense that He is our only nourisher and our only protector, though men also have these assigned tasks. By overspecifying this statement in Isaiah about God being the only Savior, they hope to have us believe that God equals Savior and Jesus equals Savior, therefore Jesus equals God. The conspiracy of modern translation is easily demonstrated. The King James Bible of 1611 is available everywhere. Compare it to a more recent translation, say the New American Bible of this century. In the earlier version, we find at 2 Kings 13 and 5 the word Savior. But in the newer version, the word deliverer has been substituted. The two words mean the same thing. But by substituting deliverer, in this case, they hide the fact that other people, besides Jesus, were called by the title Savior. In fact, Saviors, the plural, will be found at Obadiah, verse 21, and Nehemiah, chapter 9 and verse 27. Here again, by substituting a different word in the modern translations, the connotation of divinity, which is tied to this word Savior, has been guarded in modern versions by less than honest translation. Once more, we have shown the insufficient warrant of arguments that have been offered. Those terms which are said to imply divinity are used of individuals other than Jesus. There is a quotation that should be mentioned here also. At John 8 and 58, it is reported that Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am." Even if Jesus meant to claim by these words that he was alive before Abraham was, is this sufficient ground to say that he is divine? If Jesus lived in heaven, then came to earth, it might mean something remarkable, but it would not be enough to establish him as God in the flesh. In addition, it should also be noted that these words are open to other interpretation. Christians do not imagine that the prophet Jeremiah had a pre-human existence, but this is one way of interpreting the words in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1 and verse 5. They portray a pre-human existence for Jeremiah, if taken literally. But Christians find another explanation. Why not a similar understanding in the case of John 8 and 58? Now, to ambiguous evidence. Some scholars have insisted that in this statement just discussed, Jesus appropriated for himself a divine title. Because in Exodus chapter 3, it is reported that God told Moses, "I am what I am," as most English Bibles translate the Hebrew text. At John 8 and 58, Jesus says, "Before Abraham was, I am," as most English Bibles translate the Greek text. But here's the key to another deception. The original of the first text is in Hebrew, while the original of the second is in Greek. All but a few of the words of Jesus were recorded in Greek. For 200 years before the time of Jesus, the Jews used a Greek translation of their Hebrew scriptures, the Septuagint. This work translated the key phrase, "I am," of Exodus as ho on. However, the words of Jesus, "I am," have been given to us in Greek as ego eimi. If the gospel writer of this passage wanted to tell his Greek-speaking audience that Jesus had imitated God, he would have used the familiar words of the Septuagint. Otherwise, the point would be lost. The evidence of this verse is far from conclusive. There is another Greek word to consider which betrays suppression or neglect of evidence. At John 10 and 30, Jesus is quoted as saying, "I and the Father are one." The Greek word translated one is hen. Certain scholars have insisted that the only possible understanding of this word is one in essence or nature. Now, a person does not have to be a Greek scholar to refute this claim. A counter-example is sufficient. We find the same word, hen, used by Jesus in John chapter 17, verses 11, 21, 22, and 23, and in these places he includes his disciples in this oneness with God, whatever its meaning. The most widely translated sentence on earth is said to be Jesus' statement of John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son." Now, Christians wish to say that the word "only begotten" gives Jesus special status among all the sons of God. But again, there is a problem of ambiguity. The same word translated as "only begotten" is found at Hebrews 11 and 17. In this verse, the word refers to Isaac. Now, the Bible itself shows that Isaac's older brother, Ishmael, outlived his father. Therefore, at no time was Isaac, strictly speaking, the only begotten son of Abraham. Because Christian scholars recognize this fact, they qualify the meaning of the word "only begotten" in this case. They give it a less than literal interpretation. But if the meaning of that word is subject to interpretation here, why not also in the passage of John 3:16? Once more, the possibility of ambiguity means that John 3:16 is inconclusive. Whether or not Jesus really used the term Father when speaking of God is another controversy. But our point here is, again, that such use is inconclusive evidence that God was literally Father to Jesus. All Christians use the term when addressing God. The Jews themselves used the term. Jesus told them the devil was their father. And of course he was not speaking literally. Certain scholars have stressed the verse of Mark 14 and 36, where Jesus speaks the Aramaic word for father, Abba. They insist that this implies a very unique relationship between Jesus and God. But this shows forgetfulness on their part, because some of the favorite verses of the Bible are Romans 8 and 14 and Galatians chapter 4, verse 6, where Every Christian is said to use this term of address for God. Every Christian is said to call God Abba. As